I am no Jedi, but I know the Force. It moves through and surrounds.
Although some fans discount them as lesser or inferior Force users, both Ben Solo and Rey have shown an incredible attunement to the Force. During his transformation to Kylo Ren, Ben Solo not only destroyed Luke's Jedi Temple, but purged the Jedi students and apparently defeated Luke himself. Kylo has also manipulated both matter and energy in a way not previously seen in the Star Wars movies. Although Rey is admittedly less accomplished, we have seen her innate ability to fly ships like the Millennium Falcon, and most importantly, she bested Kylo Ren in one-on-one combat. The obvious question, and the one that I've dedicated this video to, is where do these Force powers come from? Why are Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo, and Rey so naturally gifted in the Force? My quick answer to this and my theory is that the two are a new generation of more powerful Force users. In a minute, I'm going to explain why I think this, how they got this power, and why it makes sense in both an in-universe and storytelling perspective. However, before I do, I'd like to talk about the connection between the two characters. And this has been obviously present throughout their existence and is quite important to my theory. This vague connection that I'm referring to was referenced quite heavily in the latest The Last Jedi trailer. Starting the trailer off is a quote by the Supreme Leader Snoke.
When I found you, I saw raw, untamed power. And beyond that, something truly special.
This little bit of dialogue plays with the viewer. At first, it seems like he's referring clearly to Kylo Ren. His words accompany shots of Kylo Ren doing various things. However, the second his dialogue is finished, we see a shot of Rey igniting her lightsaber. A lightsaber which is, metaphorically and almost literally, a torch handed down to her by the Skywalkers. Carrying another torch is Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, who we believe may be the last descendant and the only descendant of the Skywalker line. However, it's not their lineage or familial history that's important, it's their shared power. A raw strength which Luke Skywalker, at least presumably, tells Rey that he's only seen one other time, in Ben Solo. Remember, this is the same Luke Skywalker who's confronted the Empire, who redeemed Darth Vader, and who himself is a descendant of a Jedi believed to be the Chosen One. The connection goes beyond this. It existed even in The Force Awakens. Whether on a conscious or a subconscious level, Kylo Ren somehow knows Rey, and she somehow knows him too. During Rey's vision, she sees the Skywalker lineage, and a history which has most recently been capped with Ben Solo's transformation into Kylo Ren. Kylo's recognition of Rey is somewhat evident in the movie, but it's made even more clear in the audiobook.
He whirled to see the weapon land in the hand of a girl standing by a tree. Rey appeared equally shocked that her reach for the device had exceeded his. She gazed down at the weapon now resting in her grip. "It is you," Ren murmured.
Snoke was attracted to Kylo Ren because he was a mix of both the light and the dark side, and had the potential to be very powerful in both. That's a path Rey now travels, as Luke Skywalker, her presumed mentor, seems to no longer believe in the Jedi. This is also obvious in the ways that she uses her power. When she truly taps into the Force for the first time, she uses it for attack, the antithesis of what a Jedi and a light-sided warrior is supposed to do. In the newest trailer, we also apparently see her pure Force powers crack a rock as she swings her saber. Again, this is far from the calmness and the tranquility that is supposed to be exuded by a Jedi Knight. The trailer portrays Kylo Ren in the opposite way. He's struggling against the light, trying to be the dark side user that he thinks he should be. Kylo Ren and Rey are contemporaries, or at least mirror images of each other, rather than black and white enemies. Kylo struggles against the light, while it seems like Rey will soon struggle against the darkness. Neither are totally evil or villainous, as Snoke appears to be, as Palpatine was, and as Darth Vader was, for at least a while. The connection is obvious, and while they aren't the twins Jason and Jaina from Star Wars Legends, they are still deeply close in a very important way. With that being said, what does that have to do with power? It's important to remember that the Force guides everything in the Star Wars universe, or at least most things. It's no coincidence that R2-D2 and C-3PO stumbled upon Luke Skywalker on the planet Tatooine, just like it's no coincidence that Qui-Gon Jinn stumbled upon Anakin on that same planet. The book Aftermath: Empire's End has a chapter dedicated to the Church of the Force. In that chapter, one of the disciples sums up the universe as it relates to the Force in a very effective way. While the Force touches all living beings, only some, like the Jedi, operate as true vessels, not only having the Force flow through them, but also having some measure of control over it. It's also important to note that while the Force guides the universe, it doesn't control it. Yoda recognizes that the future is always in motion, and both Star Wars Legends and the new canon have treated the Force as something that guides life and something that exists alongside the universe. That's why both the movies and the Star Wars Expanded Universe have said that it's very difficult to predict the future with any real certainty. In the current Star Wars universe, there are very few powerful Force users, and certainly before the birth of Ben and Rey, there were very few within the galaxy. When Luke and Leia were born and raised, there were still some Force users in the galaxy. There was Darth Sidious, there was Yoda, there was Ben, and there was Vader. When Anakin was born, there were even more Force users. The Jedi were flourishing, and the Sith, although thought extinct, had been surviving via the rule of two for a millennia. It's my belief that Rey and Kylo Ren are so powerful because right now the Force exists in only a few vessels. I'm not sure whether the analogy will eventually be that there are only a few buckets, so each one gets a lot of water, or whether it's more accurately that there's some sort of obstacle and there's only two people that can handle it, so each one needs to be very strong. I'm fairly certain that the Force has manifested itself some way in these two individuals. There's imbalance in the universe that somehow needs to be rectified. This answer itself brings up several questions. The first is, well, wasn't the Chosen One supposed to bring balance to the Force? Wasn't he supposed to make everything good? The second one is, well, if that is true, why are there two of them, and why is one of them Rey? Let's look at the first question, the Chosen One prophecy. There are several options which would explain why the galaxy and the Force is still unbalanced. Either the balance was only temporary, the balance was never achieved, or the Chosen One prophecy was never true. It should be noted that even the masters of the dogmatic Jedi Order doubted their interpretation of the Chosen One prophecy. Also notable is that Obi-Wan, after Anakin's fall, doubted his position as the Chosen One. I think one of two options are likely. Either the Chosen One prophecy was misread, and personally this makes sense to me because the absence of dark and the existence of only light, i.e. Jedi only, no Sith, never felt like the Force was truly balanced. Thematically, this would tie in well with both the prequels and The Last Jedi. The prequels presented the Jedi as flawed. The Last Jedi shows Luke discovering those flaws and trying to deal with them. The other option is that there is a new threat to the galaxy and the Force, one not originally contemplated by those that created the Chosen One prophecy. It's been heavily suggested that Snoke comes from outside of the galaxy. He's also a threat which existed for a long time, and although he was aware of the Star Wars galaxy and the events going on within, it seems like no one besides perhaps Palpatine and some of the Chiss were explicitly aware of what he was doing. Snoke, whatever he is obviously an incredibly powerful entity, and his appearance now and his taking of Kylo Ren as a pupil shows Kylo's potential and his power. Snoke is desiccated, and he's clearly very, very old. We know for sure that he was around for the fall of the Empire, that he witnessed that. He's likely been around for far longer. He took only Kylo as an apprentice, probing Leia even while she was pregnant, and sensing his power while in the womb, despite the fact that he was likely also aware of both Luke Skywalker and Anakin. We know that he valued Kylo because of his connection to both the dark and the light side of the Force. but you can easily say the same about Luke Skywalker and Anakin. So the options are that Snoke is either a new foe which demands a new Chosen One, or perhaps that the Chosen One prophecy was never fulfilled, and Snoke is just another manifestation of the error of the Jedi. Perhaps true balance is understanding both sides of the Force and still being good, still doing what's right. The Jedi were dogmatic, and their arbitrary rules like not taking loved ones and trying to ignore ultimately useful emotions like fear and just basically not talking about things like that ultimately led to Anakin's downfall and the purge of most Force users and really much of the Force itself from the universe. Perhaps Ben and Rey are the Force's next try at achieving true balance. This would be rather cyclical, which is quite fitting for the Star Wars universe, especially from a storytelling perspective. As George Lucas famously said about the prequels,
kind of duplicating the Luke Skywalker role, but you see the echo of where it all is going to go. And instead of destroying the Death Star, he destroys the ship that controls the robots. Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.
Perhaps more elegantly, Anne Lancashire wrote a theory piece on the Phantom Menace. She said, "The repeated patterns also allow, through variation, an emotionally and intellectually complicating emphasis upon difference and change. The broad pattern of human life, from youth to maturity to death, remains constant, but individually circumstances within the pattern inevitably differ, creating different possibilities and problems. The problem is the same as it always was. The first 6 movies are tied together by Anakin Skywalker. The first cycle, comprising the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, sees Anakin, despite his fall, still somewhat achieve what he was supposed to as a Chosen One, albeit through his son, Luke Skywalker, redeeming him. Now, as the cycle starts anew, so too does our understanding of the Force, of the Chosen One, and of balance. And these are very real changes. The original 2 Star Wars trilogies were black and white. There was good, there was evil. That was the balance, good prevailing. Now the balance has changed. With that change comes 2 new arbiters, 2 new focal points of the cycle, Kylo Ren and Rey. What that means for the future of the Star Wars universe, for this trilogy and the inevitable next one, is up to you. I've got my thoughts, perhaps I can share them in a future video if you guys enjoy this. But just as a fun exercise, maybe think about Rey and Kylo as both parts of Anakin as he existed in the original 2 trilogies. Except the finish lines have changed here. Now we're not looking for a triumph of the Jedi over the Sith, we're looking for true balance. Finally, as for a question that I mentioned earlier, going back to the in-universe perspective, why 2 of them? Why 2 chosen ones? Why 2 new powerful Force users? Why not just 1? Well, the obvious answer would be that Kylo Ren failed. It's notable that the 2 weren't born at the same time. Rey would have likely been quite young at the time of the Jedi Massacre, but Snoke was already likely probing or somewhat communicating with Kylo Ren before her birth. Perhaps she's there to succeed where he has not. It makes sense that the Skywalkers would get the first go around, that lineage has always been very powerful, but now that that's failed, why not start anew, with an almost immaculately concepted, powerful Force user who comes out of the desert. I hope you enjoyed this theory. This has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.